What's going on? It's Jason Heath, and we recently had Szymon Marciniak and Evan Mitchell here in San Francisco. They're longtime collaborators who played an incredible recital here, and we got a chance to sit down and chat with them about their work together over the years, the pieces they played for this recital, and what it's like working on such a high musical level together. We've got links in the description below where you can check out more about these two great artists and the pieces that they played, and be sure to subscribe to Szymon's YouTube channel to check out the full version of these pieces. Coming soon.
We have a little history already at this point, yeah. The start was in 2014.
Yeah, March of 2014, so just about 9 years ago.
Exactly.
Speaking now.
Yeah, it is exactly, yeah, exactly. And also exactly 5 years ago we played the last time with each other, partly due to distance and partly due to, we all know because of what, right? The first time was 2014 at the TCU Bass Festival, and I was just asked by Professor Lu to perform there. And you were the student at the time?
Yeah, I was finishing an artist diploma there at the time, and my graduate assistant hours were directed toward, this semester you're just going to play with this guest artist, learn his whole program, be ready. So that was what we did. Done the Sonata 1963. I had maybe one other piece with bass, really, not much at all. I had watched Szymon's recordings, before playing with him, and, was of course impressed with all this, and didn't really know what to expect in terms of working together, but, these kinds of things, guest artist comes in, you run through everything once, like things are in the right place, it's good enough, you put it on stage, right? But we almost immediately, he wanted to rehearse things under tempo, knew every note of my part, was listening and asking really significant sort of musical interpretive questions, what would you like to do here? Or can we try this? And, in that kind of situation where you're the guest artist, you're coming in and you just have to play the next day. I mean, I've almost never had anyone engage like that with the musical side of things, and that was rare, bassist or otherwise.
Before you think about it too much, you realize, okay, we have a kind of a relationship going on here that emerged from that, first of all, the sort of soloist accompanist situation, but then there is a spark, and so let's take it and let's make it more of it, There's a lot of overlap, and with a lot of bassists, the decibel level is just rather low. I mean, it can be hard to hear what's going on because of the register. Things aren't always, as clear as they might be on a violin. Just listening for pitch and changes in bow and stuff, and then just having to play super, super soft a lot of the time. Not a problem with Szymon, balance-wise. I mean, any kind of collaboration is different than when you're practicing. I would say with bass, that can be a challenge. If there's material or a particular player or their instrument that doesn't lend itself to a big sound, just playing super, super soft is simply a challenge. The repertoire sometimes, I mean, there's sort of, your classical concertos, your Brahms E minor sonata if you do it in solo tuning, standard stuff, and then there's a lot that gets really difficult really quickly, especially if you have to play it in different tunings, or I mean, I've had to learn like the Brahms G major violin sonata in D major. There's an arrangement by Brahms for cello that someone was doing on bass, things that I've played in different keys.
There will be two big works that we played, and one of which we actually recorded, which is the Richard Dubugnon Sonata. And I think we played it later, even at the Bottesini competition, we did the first movement of that. And then we have something very special, which is by Frank Proto, which is a movement of his third concerto he wrote for François Rabat, which is called Four Scenes After Picasso, where each movement is the title is a title of a painting by Picasso, and it's kind of inspired by that. And this one is The Weeping Woman, which is the slow movement of the concerto. And I recently had a chance to finally hear the whole concerto, the recording of François, and this slow movement was so incredibly haunting. And I actually called up Frank and said, this is just one of the most beautiful things you ever wrote, from the ones I know, because of the instrumentation, and it's like from a fairy tale. And I kind of looked at the piano reduction. I thought maybe it could work as its own piece with piano, to have something in between of those bigger pieces, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah, we've been playing around with that one to make it as colorful and as effective as the orchestral version, because there's all this, thin sustained string tones and little glockenspiel touches and very light percussion and sort of shimmering colors, but all at a very low volume and sustained in a way that the piano doesn't necessarily lend itself to, right? So we've been going through that and trying to make that really work, to make sure that it sounds like what we're used to hearing.
Those pieces that a lot of people actually play by now, by Frank, like Nine Variants on Paganini or Carmen, they were written first for bass and piano, and later he orchestrated them. Well, it's different with concertos, because concertos are really meant with the orchestra, and he just made the piano reductions, which I guess, like every composer, he just tries to do what's possible. But sometimes you have to work around things to make them sound more natural, because it wasn't conceived for piano in the first place. So, but this one works really nice. part of the audience is kind of young, so let's not, you know, make the program just filled with these big, gigantic works and very serious ones as well. So we just added this Lucia di Lammermoor of Bottesini, because that was actually your suggestion. Maybe let's do something about Bottesini, so I immediately picked this one, which is something I did more recently. The other big work is, of course, Sueños by Andres Martin, which we played that 5 years ago, the last time we played at the TCU festival. Well, one thing that comes to my mind all the time, not just with Evan, but with any pianist that I ask to play some kind of, let's say, not only is a bass repertoire not known for somebody who didn't really work with bass players, but then I come with these pieces that really don't come up usually. And for me, I always feel a little guilty because I sort of consider, well, this guy has to learn a piece now maybe to play it only with me, and maybe only once. Or maybe there will be next time, but just in a few years' time. And it's just like you put all this work for that. That's this pianist's position in that case, while I'm always the one that I know it already, or maybe this is the first time that I play it, but I know that I will have some kind of a career with this piece in the future, playing with that person, and maybe next time with that person. I try, though, to make it more a relationship. And I realize that as years go by, it becomes more and more important to me to do it like a project or not to do it. Which is, I know the reality of those situations, these typical festival things, and I just cannot run into these things of quick rehearsal, because I know that I have a music that doesn't work like that. And you know your kind of standards, and you know when is the point when you maybe frustrate yourself not quite being up to the level you want to be at just because of the reality of the situation. So I just take care of that to have sort of everything in the right environment. Players are coming to either it is ISB or other festivals, and you have this kind of guest artist or whatever I'm called and accompanist situation. But the repertoire that I brought and that I usually bring requires certainly something higher than this kind of balance. That it is absolutely equal. I mean, we played non-variants on Paganini, but the Herold Sonata and the ultimate workout of Hilmeiering, which is definitely the duo thing, where the pianist has just as gigantic difficulties to overcome as me, in the same way. So it's not something you can do without rehearsal, sight reading, or with somebody that isn't up to standard, or where there's no chemistry. So you kind of count on having luck, really. And in this case, certainly, you know, I was kind of immediately struck by how easy it is to play with Evan, and how we communicate and exchange ideas.